Well, ladies and gentlemen, it really was a very dark and stormy night back then. I shall never ever forget it. We'd been at sea for many, many days. We'd been together as a team, what I thought was a winning team, for about 4 months. And prior to that, we'd spent about 4 or 5 months of everybody's time and our sponsors' money building this team development, I think it was called. And on this dark and stormy night, I was in bed, asleep. Quite a rare occurrence given the situation we're in, but there I was, absolutely exhausted. And a very frantic crew member came up to my bed and shook me awake and explained to me that in his opinion he thought we were sinking. So, not the best news, and I guess other than being on fire, that's about the worst news you can have. Really annoyed because we were doing really well. You know, we're out there to win, that's what it was about, and sinking, that wasn't going to help us win. So, not good. Get out of bed and you kind of walk about 20 feet back to the middle of the boat. This thing's about 70 feet long. And sure enough, he wasn't wrong. It did look like we were sinking. So, what can you do? You have no idea if all this water, you know, the bottom of the boat's about the same height as me, 6'2". You don't know if it's been there for 5 seconds, for 2 minutes, for half an hour, for an hour. We're supposed to know. We had these processes in place where you can actually ensure that the crew come and check what's going on so you know the metrics, you know where you are. But that had broken down in the 4 or 5 days of the storm we've been battling against. So we don't actually know if we're sinking or not. And that's a whole new feeling, I can tell you. So given that we might have a few minutes or whatever else to deal with this, what else can I do other than just shout to everybody to get off the deck and come down, or get out of bed and come and join us, get in this water, icy cold dark water, get in there with me and everybody else and find out where this water's coming in from. You know, plenty of complications. You know, it could be one of 20 pipes going through the boat, or it could be a big hole, or the prop shafts falling out. Who knows? Anyway, so in I go. Obviously followed by my great team, winning team, great leader here. What else could go wrong? And after about, well, it seemed like ages, but after a few minutes I looked up. And to my amazement, whilst I had, I guess, half the team with me, splashing around in this icy cold water trying to find out and stop this thing from sinking, the other half of my team, this high-performing, winning, successful team, there they were, dry suits on, survival suits, heading off for the life raft. Absolutely amazing. Couldn't believe it. We didn't actually stop there and then to get the flip chart out and deal with it. But fortunately, we found this problem quite early on. We found out what the problem was pretty quickly. It took a bit longer to sort out the problem with the team. But quite clearly, something massive was missing. We performed well, great results. We set out to win this race. We were, in the top 20%, halfway around. It was okay, on track. That's what we were aiming to do. We put all this effort in, we knew all the things, these beliefs like yours. No doubt about that. We knew what it could look like. But it didn't happen. Something massive was missing. And that's really what I wanted to come and share with some of you guys today. And that's what the last 10 years of my life's been around. Is helping leaders and teams in organisations all over the world, hopefully, go a bit further faster and certainly not make the same mistakes we did. So that was it, a dark and stormy night. What I'd like you to do at the moment is to reach for your buttons on the table, because I've got a question for you all. I say something big was missing. Something massive was missing, even though I thought we were doing well. What was missing started with me. I was the leader. That was my job. And what was missing, not only for me, but for my team, was this thing called leadership. And what we found out over the years is, without any doubt at all, in times of difficulty, times of change, almost any time really, leaders often fail to unite and align their teams, not through what they are doing, but through what they're not doing. It's what we're not doing which causes the problems. So can I ask you, if you feel as though you're not a leader, just stand up on the table and wave. People always get up at this stage. No, of course not. I mean, it's nothing new. We've all heard it. You've heard it from Bill and everybody else today. Leadership is everyone's business. It's not about how many thousands of people are in your team or report to you. It's on a personal level. Leadership is everyone's business. And that's really where the story begins. It says what was missing. So, just take a minute, if you would, and have a chat with your colleagues, your beautiful colleagues. There's one of the leaders around the table with you. And just put your thoughts onto button 1, 2, 3, or 4. What is the answer to this? What percentage of people leave their organisation or their team, their company, because of their leader? What's the answer, guys? I wonder what it could be. You've played before. Yeah. So 69% of you think that most people leave because of their leader. Not one of you thinks it's 100%. Did anybody argue for 100%? You did. How's life been at BT? Poor you. Yeah. We go around the world and ask people, leaders, in normal organisations, in successful, large, multinational organisations, the answer to this question. I can't believe it. The amount of people that say 90, 95, 100. It's phenomenal. And then you say, well, what are you doing about it? Oh. So who is it who's making this happen? Who is it? Who are these leaders who are making 80% of their people who want to leave, who do leave? You know, it's us, isn't it? We're the ones who are the cause and effect. This is a survey of many million people around the world. They're surveyed after the exit interview. They're surveyed after they got the check. There's no funny business. It's a real survey. And 80% of people leave because of the leaders. Or, as I said, because of what leaders are failing to do. When's the last time you guys came to work thinking, right, what I've got to do today isn't this bunch of tasks, but actually I've got some time in my day, in my diary, in my heart, to do something differently. So if we're going to change this, it's got to start with us. So one of the great things I've been able to experience for the last 10 years in meeting with people like yourselves and many other leaders from other international organisations is really what's normal. And it's not a great picture, really. The goal is to try and be a little bit different, because normal's not great. I suppose the story I always think of is a new day, a new team. I've left that. So I'm one of those 80% of people who's left because of the boss. I've gone somewhere new. I've joined this new organisation, and I'm full of hope. Maybe it's a team in the existing place I was working. I'm full of hope. All that stuff, that legacy, that baggage, the thing that made me leave, it's different this time. It's going to be very different. I'm going to make this a special place. So I'm very excited, inspired, keen, helpful, astute, good-looking young man. I wanted to be different. I joined the team, and it's probably not terribly long before that spring in my step, skipping through fields of daisies, has changed a bit. I've come to work for a month's past, and actually, those great guys in my team, they didn't actually do what they said they would do. So it's probably one of those things, isn't it? They didn't mean to do that. But I'm lost a bit of my edge there. Then a few more weeks and months may pass, and actually the same people, or my boss, or whoever it is, another stakeholder in my world, they've said they'd do this, and it hasn't happened. And actually, all of a sudden, that great bit of work I did, that idea of mine, well, hang on, somebody else has taken that as theirs. This is normal. So that wonderful feeling of have a go, excited, it'll be different this time, is slowly being eroded. To this stage where I'm almost getting disenfranchised here, and ultimately where this leads to, obviously not in your world, not in BT, I know this, but ultimately where it can lead to is, because of those feelings of people not doing what they said they would do, because of these things, our ideas, there's no collaboration, what's going on, we end up in this crazy situation of actually competing against each other in our teams. So that's pretty much what is all too often normal. So for you guys who are going to go and have another exciting year, challenging, and no doubt will be just as successful as last year, it's about you finding it in your hearts to be a bit different. Because you don't want to do normal. That doesn't work. The people who get this, the people who take the leadership pill and can be different, you can spot them. They're the fulfilled, happy, confident people out there. We see it all the time. So what is it these people are doing? What is actually happening? You've summarised your beliefs, and great to see the top 3 and Hanif's 4 of what you think is important. And as always, there's nothing terribly new there, is it? It's your beliefs, It's not rocket science. There's nothing terribly new. There's all different ways of packaging these things up. And again, nothing new here. You've all seen this sort of thing before. But the key is, what do we actually do with it? How can we make ourselves different? How can we be that happy, fulfilled group of leaders going to work who really believe that if their team are not inspired, it is their fault? And what we've seen all over the world is the team's leaders who buy into this thing we call Reg. Call it whatever you want. But some very simple practices. It's the small things that make the difference. We never had any big problems on the boat in terms of we might die, the mast might fall down, there's no water anymore. Those things people could deal with. It wasn't a big drama, really. We had all of those. We literally did have about 7 or 8 days with no water on the boat. People just dealt with it. The small things. That stolen last Mars bar. The fact that someone's wine gums have gone missing. Or my socks are drying on that heater and he knocks it off. That's the end of the world. That's what slows everything down. The confusion, the angst. And all that time spent trying to build it up again. So this character here we call Reg. Those teams who've worked out that actually, unlike the mistake I made going around the world, where I said, the focus here is that we win. Number one. That's all it was about. I thought it was great. What a great leader I was. Clearly going for the top. But it wasn't about that. What we're seeing is the teams who have absolute clarity on the goal, on their objectives, on the metrics. Yeah, you've got to have that. But then that doesn't become the focus. The focus of the great, successful, outstanding teams needs to be on how you do it. Respect, what does that mean? Well, a bit of preparation, turning up on time, actually listening to people as opposed to listening to interrupt them. The simple things which get in the way of us hearing each other's ideas. The simple things that get in the way of us being able to get the best out of each other. The simple things which enable our colleagues to come to work and really enjoy it. Just showing that respect. Empathy. Yeah, we know what it means. What does it really do if you don't have it? You know, if we've got people in our world, in our teams, who aren't prepared to really try and see the world through other people's eyes, if you have got people who aren't prepared to listen and try and understand before they dive in with the correct answer, that's what empathy is all about. If you can encourage that, what a difference it makes. And genuineness. Simply, it's about honesty. As we'll see in a moment. It comes down to trust. I've heard, just in the few hours I've been here, the word trust mentioned a lot. If you can't actually believe each other, if there's half-truth spoken, if that excited person who joined the team on day one isn't getting the full story, they're going to make their own guesses up. They're going to fill in the gaps themselves as to what they're not hearing. It doesn't help. So I said this word trust. Jerry, you mentioned that it was mentioned about 18 times today, that collaboration is the way forwards. Well, I guess that's why there's so many of you in BT, because you need lots of people to do the work. It's a team thing. It's got to be part of the reason, hasn't it? We do need to be interacting and working and talking to each other. What we know great, outstanding, successful teams are doing, who don't want to be normal, who want to actually have a different approach and come to work inspired and happy, who really do care about their team members coming to work in the same way, they spend some time focused on this trust. How do you get trust? Well, it's precisely the sort of thing you've got, let's set up for this evening. You have a chance to not only spend the day together, but to go and spend some time this evening together. You've got to get to know each other. That's what trust comes from. Because if you haven't got this fundamental thing called trust, if you haven't got the trust, which you won't get unless you actually listen to each other and have that respect and empathy, without the trust, how on earth are you ever going to have a really healthy argument? You know, let's pick on Steve for a moment. You know, if you don't want to trust Steve, if you think we're having a big argument with Steve, it's not going to pan out well in your career, you're not really going to go in tooth and nail. But if you haven't had a proper, healthy argument, how on earth would you ever be able to buy in to whatever's agreed at the end of the conversation, the end of the meeting? So without the trust, you can't really have those healthy arguments. If you've got a fear of the conflict, you can't buy in. If you can't, if you've not bought into it, how are you going to commit to it? We can put up here as many objectives as you choose, but if the team haven't bought into the whole thing, if you haven't bought into it yourself, well, there's no way you're going to be accountable for that. So it's just basic, simple things. We all know this. ultimately, we're trying to get everybody focused on the same collective results, on the purpose. The simplest, smallest things are going to get in the way of that not happening. And ultimately, as it says on the slide there, inattention to results. But it all starts off just because we haven't quite taken the time to figure out who we are and get to know our colleagues. It starts with trust. So simple. So, I guess what's also normal in great organisations such as yours is you come together at this sort of event once a year to kick off the start of the next year, and you've just delivered a fantastic set of results, you've done everything right, and here you are. Let's do it again, but let's do more. It'll be harder. Well, how are we going to do this? How are you going to achieve what's been asked of you? They want more, they want more, they want more. As I said, the successful organisations are definitely focusing on their approach to doing it. Absolutely clarity on what the targets are, but it's how do we get there? And as it says, it's leadership. Just what went wrong on my boat, just what I wasn't doing properly. Leadership's everyone's business. Just let me take you through and ask you some questions as we go through this. Just think about yourself. Again, a very simple model here. Stood the test of time, about 25 years. 4 million people have been involved in this survey around the world. There's 5 practices. The first, model the way. And this is really what starts with you. You know, at the moment, some of you sitting there saying, what's he talking about? What's going on? It's nothing to do with me. What I can promise you is that those leaders in teams around the world who really get this, who buy into this, the experienced players, this is what gives them the ability to have a fulfilled and happy time at work, and therefore beyond it. How many of you would honestly be able to put their hand up and say, you know, 100% of the time, you know, I do what I say I'm going to do? 50% of the time, 20%, 40, 50, 60, 70. We're all human. We can never get it right all the time. But what we need to happen is, you know, even if it's right now, you make the decision that forget what happened previously, yesterday, last week, this morning. Make the decision now that actually you want to be different. You want to change how it is. If you're not seen to be doing what you say you'll do, whatever you've got to share with people, if they don't believe the messenger, they're not going to read the message, are they? So again, anybody thinks they've got 5 out of 5 up on the table? Inspire shared vision. This is what we want leaders to be doing. It's what you should be doing. If you're taking leadership seriously, every step of the way, you've got an opportunity to ensure that your team, your people, can go to work more inspired. What happened on my boat was the guys clearly weren't bought in. Well, half of them weren't. If they really had personally committed to what we were doing, they wouldn't have done that. They'd have bought into the team. But I'd totally failed to get that to happen. There's no way I could ever deny that. I tried. I thought I'd done it. In terms of performance, yeah, we're doing okay. But I'd failed to do this. You know, ask yourselves, you know, how often do you find yourself at work really describing what the future looks like? How often are you talking about future trends that are going to affect your work and your world? Those people out there, your stakeholders, they need to hear you say this. Thirdly, what we believe is the most difficult of all these 5 attributes for leaders in organisations such as yours to do is to really challenge the process. Why do I say that? Well, so much of this is about making mistakes. If you really want to try and be innovative and try different things, take some risks, experiment, naturally there's going to be some mistakes along the way. And where is it in the corporate world does it encourage us to get some mistakes on the board? It isn't what we're trying to do. Absolutely not. So, when your team members, when your colleagues have made a mistake, are we going to encourage that to happen again, learn from it? That's what it's normal. We're not really allowing people to experiment and take the risks we do need them to take. If we really want them to be inspired and get the best from them, they've got to have the ability to do this. Fourthly, out of 5, enable others to act. This has to be what it's all about. Our world is very good at providing a salary and a pension and a phone. Maybe not enough phones in your opinion, but the equipment we need to do the tasks. so we can perform. We're very good at doing this. But there's a whole other side to this story. How effective are we really in enabling this collaboration to happen? How much time and effort we're really putting into getting the best out of each other, building those relationships. Events like this evening is what it's all about. And finally, encourage the heart. As Jerry mentioned, I had the enormous pleasure of running around the streets of London last week. And I can tell you now, it doesn't matter what kind of reward, my wildest dreams, all piled up at the finish line. If it hadn't been for that encouragement every step of the way from the crowds, I would never have got there. No way, not in a million years. I think the same is true at work. It's all too easy to we set those objectives, those tasks. Good luck, off you go, see you next year. But it isn't going to work. What we know leaders, people need, is to have encouragement along the way. It makes sense. It's so easy to do. But do we do it? You ask yourselves, how often do you do that? So nothing complicated here. We've just got to decide we want to do it. And of course, the great thing about this is, if you are famous for doing this, how much more effective are you when you need to get the stick out instead of the carrot? So that's it. Encourage the heart. So some very simple, very, very simple things, which isn't new to anybody here. But the difference between those teams, those leaders who take the time to do this and those who don't, is what we see all over the world every day. Every day. So fundamentally, human beings, we're born to be quite selfish. Those of you who've got children, I don't know how often you have to reprimand them for being too generous with their toys or their sweets. Not a lot, I imagine. So there we are, naturally selfish animals. That's how our brains and our genes are designed. We're not supposed to be anything other than that. That's normal. And I think I'd go a bit further than that, actually. My experiences, teams, organizations around the world we learn from, it's equally unnatural for some of us to love, really. We don't see much of that going on, but certainly the teams who do become more outstanding, they have found a way to do this. So guys, I know you've got a massive year coming up. I really commend you the way in which you'll do this, the way in which you'll succeed, the how. The answer isn't your leadership, your personal leadership. It starts there. And I've no doubt at all, those of you who take the time, put time in your diaries, put time in your working life, come to work, and part of what you're being paid to do is to be a more exemplary leader. Those of you who do find some space in your lives to do this, for the good of all the other people who come to work for you and with you, the difference will be resounding. Either way, what other choice is there, guys? Have a go. Thank you.